Welcome to the show the podcast community is calling Access Involvement. I'm your host, Billy Ferris, and each week I'm joined by a different team member from Student Involvement. This week it is Brit Bowen, coordinator for student media. Brit, how you doing?
Doing well, man. I had to travel a long ways to get here, all the way across the hall, just right across the street from you. So
You are the first guest on this show that has more experience in this very studio than I do.
Yeah, I feel like I'm at home right now. Home field advantage right now is going in my favor, I think. So
Are we competing?
You always want to be comfortable, whether that be at work or anywhere, right?
True.
Yeah.
Comfort's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so home game for you, I guess. Road game for me.
Yeah. No, not road for you, because you work here too. You've helped me install some of this very equipment.
I have.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so we've established that we work together. This is normally when I ask people if it's the first time they've been on a podcast.
I would use work loosely from here on out, but
Not sure that.
But I'll let you proceed.
Attitude. I usually ask people if this is the first podcast they've ever been on, but you have many experiences with a microphone. Would you like to just kind of tell people what your background is real quick, just so everyone understands what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So full-time student media advisor here along with you, Billy, at Auburn University, and I do a lot of freelance work in broadcasting. I am the radio voice of Auburn women's basketball and Auburn softball. In addition to that, I do freelance work for the SEC Network Plus and Memorial Productions here locally in Auburn.
He's a man of just so many talents, is what I say.
That's a stretch, but sure.
What we're going to find out is if quick thinking is one of your talents, because it is time for our first segment, Pop Quiz. I'm going to ask you 7 rapid-fire questions, and you're going to answer however you would like. Are you ready for a Pop Quiz?
In school, no. In this situation, I like my chances.
Okay. That's good. There are no rules to Pop Quiz.
All right.
So answer any way you want.
Okay.
All right, number 1. If you could be a pro athlete, what sport would you choose?
Pro athlete, this is probably different than most. I'm going place kicker in the NFL. I was a kicker in high school. Always dreamed of being a pro kicker. Obviously at 5'8", 150 pounds, I didn't quite have the leg or the physique to accomplish that. But, one can dream, and not to mention growing up a huge Auburn fan, as most people around Auburn do. Obviously, everyone's childhood dream is to play football at Auburn. And, of course, when I was in college, just entered college, Wes Byram was the starting kicker at Auburn, who went on to have the game-winning kick in the national championship. Not to mention Cody Parkey followed him, and then Daniel Carlson. Between those 3 guys, and then I think John Vaughn was before Wes Byram. So between those 4 guys, I was never going to have a shot.
You weren't going to be like Cody Parkey?
No, I wish, and for many reasons. He's still kicking in the NFL today. So,
see, I would pick golf for one simple reason. You pick your own schedule. It is non-contact, which is nice, and the payouts are great.
Well, and that's my thing with the NFL, being a place kicker. If you can do it consistently, okay, which is key, and hit, not have too many misses, you can kick in the NFL 15, 20 years, not to mention you work 1 day a week, practice. There's only so much kicking you can do because you will hurt yourself.
What I'm picturing right now, though, is a kick returner, like a Derrick Henry-sized kick returner returning a kick, and place kicker Brit Bowen trying to tackle him.
But here's what you do, though. You're going in the end zone.
The old Olay.
No, you're going in the end zone and dive at the ankles, man. Dive at the ankles, you won't get hurt.
Important lesson for everyone to know.
Yeah.
Second question. If you had 3 wishes, like this is an Aladdin situation.
Ooh.
If you had 3 wishes, what would your first wish be?
All right, this is tough. Because I can think of about 4 or 5, but 3. All right, first and foremost, so my wife and I, we're expecting.
What are you naming your child?
Yeah, not for the podcast.
Nice
try, though.
We had a little bet that I could guess the name, and I am sorry to report that I lost that bet.
I got a free breakfast out of it. But for those that didn't know, my wife and I are expecting in August, and I think my number 1 wish would just be that both my wife and daughter are healthy after the delivery process, because that is something, honestly, as closer we get, she's fine. Like, Jesse's a trooper, much tougher than I am. I'm a wimp. Like, you play kickball with me once a week. You know that. That is something that probably gives me the most anxiety about the whole situation, just because I have no control over it whatsoever. So I would say first and foremost that.
So that's a very sweet wish, but everyone knows you asked for more wishes first. So terrible answer.
Yeah, well, yeah. All right. My second wish, fine, more wishes. Third wish, I'll go simple here. I really hope one day I get to broadcast a Auburn national championship. I came close in 2016, Game 3 of the Women's College World Series. It was a spectacular Oklahoma team that defeated Auburn, and Auburn had a phenomenal Game 2 with a walk-off grand slam. A moment that I'll never forget. But to be that close, it was so bittersweet, and I just pray and hope one day I'll have that opportunity again.
All right, so number 3. This is a kind of a this or that situation.
All right.
If you had to choose between having just a cell phone or just a car for the rest of your life, you can never have the other. Which one would you choose?
Oh, that's easy. A car all day. Number 1, I love to travel.
Okay.
All right, number 2, a laptop and a tablet do the exact same thing that a cell phone does. So
just picturing Brit with a laptop in his ear. Hold on. Okay, can you hear me?
Have you not heard of Zoom?
No, unfamiliar after the last year.
Unfamiliar. Okay, well.
So you go car.
So car, without a doubt.
I'd go cell phone without any hesitation because there's Uber. There are friends with cars. It'd be easier to ask a friend for a ride than to ask them to use their phone.
Well,
and think about the amount of times you are sitting around and just instinctively looking at your phone to entertain yourself. That is gone.
But see that's the problem. We all do it too much anyways. And one thing this summer I have been working on more this year total. My goal is to read 10 books this year.
Okay.
So I'm on book 4 or starting book 5 this week. So that would give me more time to do that. We all need to be more intentional with communicating face to face. Far too often we see, and I love it. I hate it when people say students and young people do it. No, everybody does it. It's not just high schoolers. It's not just kids. It's adults. It's everybody. We've got to get better at talking to one another face to face. Interpersonal communication is.
Is this about me?
Well, not about you. You actually, I hate to say you do something well, but you actually do that well, better than most.
He hates to say it. I don't know.
But, I mean, think about what's going on in the world now. I mean, like, in just problem solving in person, when you come across a stranger, like, we don't know how to be nice to one another anymore. You know what I mean? Just little things like that. I mean, we are far too dependent on our phones, and honestly, life is...
Totally.
Life is much more simple without a cell phone, and as Billy, of course.
Totally.
Yeah. So.
Does an Apple Watch with a wireless feature count as a phone in this situation? I'm going to say, a question from our producer and audience. I'm going to say no, that does not count as a phone.
Okay, but can you... You know what? I'm going to go no just for the James Bond.
Okay.
Point of it, secret agent.
Okay.
So because like I don't own an Apple Watch. I want one for many reasons.
I have one, and I should just let you have it because I forget to charge it every night. I've not worn it in months because I always forget to charge it.
All right. See, that's a waste of money.
Correct.
But, I mean, just walking up. I mean, think about how many jokes you
could do that with your regular watch and make people just think you're a crazy person.
I'll leave that to you in our office.
Harsh, but fair for being honest. Next question. Number 4. What was the last show you binge watched?
Last show I binge watched was, I'll give you 2, both on Netflix.
No rules to pop quiz.
Yeah, you said no rules. One, Narcos on Netflix. Mm-hmm. Man, it's graphic, so don't watch it with the kids. But I've somehow got my wife into loving organized crime movies and shows as much as I do. So it's one of those guilty pleasure things that we were just obsessed with. Mm-hmm. And with Narcos 2, what was so interesting, it was actually based on facts and a true story down in Colombia, which was really fun to watch and learn how that played out. Another one, a little late to the party on this one, but Schitt's Creek. We're watching that on Netflix right now. It's funny. David is, I think, one of the funniest characters I've seen on a show in quite some time. Just is wit, his quick comebacks are just really funny to watch. I enjoy it.
You're the radio expert here. Do I have to bleep that name on this podcast?
On a podcast?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, good to know.
Not at all.
So I'm also late to the party. I'm binging New Girl right now.
Okay.
It's a sitcom I watched the first 2 episodes of when it originally aired and thought it was really funny and just forgot about it. So I'm in like the 2nd episode of the 2nd season now.
Well, I'm sure you'll ask me what my favorite show is at some point, and if you do, I apologize.
Nope.
Seinfeld is supposedly coming back to Netflix at some point. And at least that's been the rumor for about the last year, and I can't wait for that because I have not watched it start to finish in several years. So
Seinfeld may come up again soon in this podcast.
I can't wait.
Number 5. If you could choose to be the same age for the rest of your life, what age would you choose?
Oh man, that's tough. Honestly, I kind of like where I'm at right now. I'll stay with 30. Okay. You know,
nice even number.
Nice even number. Right. You're not quite, that far along into adulthood, but you're far enough along where I think you're a lot more mature than you were 5 years ago, and I think that goes for any adult at age 30 to 25. Not to mention you're still, if being in shape is something you care about, it's a lot easier to be in shape at that point. I'm an active person. I like to go and do things, and yeah, so I'll roll with 30.
All right. If you could cameo on any TV show, which one would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I like when I ask good questions. I appreciate that.
I'll go. I love how much you compliment yourself during this whole thing.
You complimented me. I thanked you for the compliment. I was just trying to be polite.
I need to start keeping a tally over here. Okay. I would go probably Ozark right now, because if you think about all the shows out there, Ozark season 4, that's one of the most anticipated seasons to be released, I think, coming up in the next, hopefully, 6 months to a year. It was one last year during COVID that again, late to the party. I'm late to everything when it comes to TV shows and pop culture. But the wife and I binge watched it thanks to my dad and fell in love with it. It is something we did every night for a good 2 to 3 weeks. We took it slow, watched one show a day, and man, it was good. And it was one of those shows too. You truly didn't know what was coming next. So, and the fact that so many people know what it is, like I just think it'd be fun. All
right, mine. You know what? I'm gonna skip. It doesn't even matter.
No, it does.
No, it doesn't matter.
You started it now. You have to say it.
All right, I'm going to be a million little things, and I was going to say it in a way to purposely annoy you because they're all Boston sports fans, so I want to cameo with them like at a Patriots game or a Bruins game and just hang out with the cast.
I would give you a Bruins game. My dad has, for my family, has turned out to be a Bruins fan because of a sports talk show, Felger and Maz, up in Boston. So doesn't watch a game all year. Until the playoffs, then he'll start saying we and us, and I'm like, come on, dude, what are you doing? So I've got to get him. I keep telling him I'm going to get him a Boston Bruins shirt to wear around Alabama, of course, so he'll fit in.
You'll probably find a Bruins Patriots 2-pack form. Number 7.
You don't want to.
No, there's no time for your response. Number 7. What minor inconvenience do you wish you'd never have to experience ever again? And an example of a minor inconvenience. I'll give you mine first, so you know what I'm talking about in terms of minor, like eating corn on the cob and a little bit of corn gets stuck in your teeth. That would be my answer. That would never happen again.
What about?
Admittedly, not a huge problem in my life, but that would be my answer. So, what minor inconvenience would you not want to experience?
Stuck in traffic / behind slow traffic.
I don't know if I can classify that as minor.
Well, it's my minor because every time I drive...
There are no rules to pop quiz.
Yeah, you said that. When I drive on the interstate, especially a holiday weekend, I always joke with my wife... Mm-hmm. It was stop and go on 4th of July weekend from the coast all the way up to Montgomery. I mean, and you're talking a hour to hour and 15-minute drive from Evergreen, Alabama, going from about 2.5 to 3 hours. It just shouldn't take that long.
That's right.
Stop and go the entire way. And I tell my wife all the time, she gets so tired of me saying this, I wish my truck would turn into the Back to the Future car and I can just hover above and then just drive straight. I probably say that once a road trip with
Plus,
her.
you could time travel, so that would.
And sure, even forget the time travel. Just the ability to go around traffic would be suffice for me.
It's my lifelong dream to time travel.
Well, we're going to space, I hear now. So,
I've only time traveled in one direction so far in my life, and it's just at present speed forward, and that's just so boring.
Good luck with that.
Thank you for the pity laugh over there, producer. Yeah. With that, we're going to leave pop quiz.
All right.
I know when you pity laugh, okay? I know when it's a pity laugh.
Okay.
It's fine. I still appreciate the effort. So we're going to move on for pop quiz and get into Let's Get Personal, where we get to know a little bit more about you, Brit Bowen. As we always do on Access Involvement, we're going to start with the start. Where are you from?
Where am I from? Excel, Alabama. It is a small town in southwest Alabama in Monroe County. There's two celebrities I can relate it to. One is Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird, from the county seat of Monroeville, Alabama. And then we also have, I hate to say this on Auburn airwaves, Alabama alum Leroy Jordan, All-American linebacker and Hall of Famer with the Dallas Cowboys from XL.
All right. What was it like growing up there?
Small town. It was a town that everybody knew everybody. My childhood was very fun. I had both sets of grandparents 2 minutes away. My parents were from there, and the best part about my childhood, my dad would probably disagree. My dad was a high school football coach. He was the head high school football coach, and when he was there in his tenure, we were really good. And when I say good for our hometown, we were in the playoffs every year. And for a small 2A school, that's something good. Like we haven't been to the playoffs in over a decade. We haven't had a winning season in over a decade at the high school I went to.
So when your dad was the coach,
yeah,
what was that like? Was he more dad or more coach with you?
Oh, my dad coach at the field.
At the field. I'm assuming at home.
At the field, 100% coach, but at the same time, he would crawl me just like he would crawl any of his players. And honestly, I love that and respected that, because like the one thing that he and I never wanted was for me to be treated any different, because one thing we always frowned upon in Little League, and then one of the reasons I never want to coach my kids, I want them to learn from somebody else, is so that in life you're not going to have favoritism. And that's something he wanted to show me early, and that's something I always love and appreciated. But I remember in preschool, I was 4 years old, not even in kindergarten yet. My dad would come and check me out of preschool and take me to the pep rallies, and I would be with a football team. So
that's awesome.
And in kindergarten, in school, we would always be, pep rally with our class. Well, not me. I was always with a team, and my friends used to always get so jealous of that. I was a ball boy. I got to ride on the buses, do all the things. So it was a lot of fun.
I see what you were saying a second ago, and yes, I will coach your children. I think that's what you were hinting at.
I want them to win, Billy. And right now, from what I'm seeing of your resume this summer, it's not playing in your favor.
We are on a kickball team together, and our kickball team has yet to taste victory.
Yeah, it's been as fun as it is. Like, I got home last night, disappointed at the results, but man.
But you pitched real well.
You rolled that ball on your hand. It was fun.
So
honestly, the hanging out is what it's all about. It's fun.
So one thing you said, like your dad was no easier on you. Something like a strangely large amount of people in our department had their parents coach them. Is what I found. That's been a consistent theme on this podcast.
Interesting.
My dad coached me too in baseball, and he did not treat me the same as everybody else. He treated me much harder than everybody else. And so, like, was there that aspect too?
Yeah, there was that aspect of it, not the opposite. And I think none whatsoever. Because my dad, the first time I played for him was 7th grade basketball, and I did not start. There were games that I did not play. Played for him in football, in 8th grade football. He was our head JV coach at that time. He had given up being the head football coach for the high school team. It was just time to transition away from that. And it was funny that at the timing, he got to coach me in a bunch of JV sports. And, like I remember vividly in 8th grade, I was not on first or second string. There were several games where I did not play because he told me, he's like, you will get hurt if you play in these games. We were playing teams that were far too big, far too athletic, and honestly should have never been on our schedule. Whole nother story. But yeah, like I mean, there were all of those things. And my dad also too, growing up, was very realistic with me. Not that he wasn't supportive. He was very realistic in the fact that, again, like every kid, want to go to the NBA, want to go to the NFL, But again, 5'8", 150 pounds. And he finally look, you truly want to play in college, like you've got to go to an AIA or a D3 or something like that, and and it's something like honestly there's not enough of. You've got to be realistic, but also supportive. There's a balance in that, And for that, it's just something I've always been grateful of.
I'm sure you've been thinking a lot about that balance as you're about to have a child and be
Yeah,
a dad. You've been thinking about that.
And honestly, it's the biggest fear that I have. It's same with my parents and my in-laws. They're incredible as well. You just always worry if, are you going to be what that kid needs? Are you going to be a good enough parent? Are you going to be a good enough dad? Are you going to be patient enough? Like, are you going to be able to teach what they need to learn and those sorts of things? So that is my biggest fear past the safety of the birth is, will I be able to provide? You know what I mean?
I feel like you'll be pretty good at that.
So, I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things that, I'm sure every parent at some point or another, if you care enough, you have that thought.
So you talked about wanting to go into the NBA, want to go to the NFL,
yeah.
but you figured out that probably wasn't going to happen. Did you always want to go into the media from that realization on, or were there other things you wanted to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So,
Thank you.
Again, back to my dad. I promise I love
appreciate when you tell me I ask great questions. Is that less complimentary if I say it that way?
Yes, much better.
Got it.
I promise I love my mom, too. Mom, I'm much more, honestly, personality, more like her than I am my dad. But again, back to my dad. He was so busy growing up with coaching, year-round, because of summer you had workouts and stuff. And so anytime I got to be with him, which I wanted to be all the time, when we were in the car, we were always listening to a game of some kind. In the summer, it was baseball. It was the Braves. Or in the spring, it was Auburn baseball. Believe it or not, I listened to Chris Stewart in Alabama baseball a lot growing up because back home, being in the state of Alabama, if you're not around Auburn, Montgomery, everybody's carrying Alabama sports. So I listened to them more than anything. But what really made me want to do it, my parents have had season tickets to Auburn football games since they were in college, since before I was born. So I grew up inheriting getting to go to Auburn games. It was something I was very, very spoiled in. When Jim Five passed away in 2003, there was a CD that came out with Jim Fife's top 25 greatest calls. And every week on the way to Auburn, just to get ready, just to be in Auburn, we would listen to Jim Fife's top 25 greatest calls. Not to mention we were listening to every Auburn game on the radio, and at night driving back, we would always listen to LSU because it was on an AM station. We could pick it up at night. You could pick it up driving down I-65 better. So we were listening to sports all the time. But that Jim Fife top 25 highlight call of hearing Bye Bye Bo and Tillman, and I can go on and on. It was, I still get chills from hearing Touchdown Auburn, and he made Touchdown Auburn the phrase that it is today, and it changed Auburn radio, and it's just something I've always wanted to be a part of.
All right, so you went to Auburn for school, obviously, and were you involved? I know the answer to this, but were you involved in anything while you were here?
Yeah, so I started
this.
I actually started with Auburn baseball. I was a baseball manager in my community college for 2 years. I didn't play baseball in high school. I didn't think I was good enough, and it's one of those things that, again, my family was really good friends with the head coach, and again, I didn't want favoritism. I didn't want to be on the team because of what my last name is or who my dad is. So anyways, long story short, I kept the books for 3 years, got a scholarship at community college, and then came to Auburn and wanted to do that as well, just to get involved in the athletics department. Did that for a year, and as most college students, well, not most, some college students, living away from home for the very first time at 20 years old. I met my wife in the first 2 weeks I was here, so I was head over heels about her, like right out of the gate, and then and it just, the lifestyle around Auburn and Auburn baseball. I mean, I was exposed to an SEC Division I program. Academics was not my top priority, so it took me a semester and some harsh realities to realize that, hey, I needed to focus on school, and spent a semester getting turned around and realized, all right, I've got to hit the reset button. What is it that I want to do? I came here to pursue media. I need to do that, and came to Weagle and got involved as a play-by-play announcer for Auburn soccer and Auburn softball, and from there just never looked back. It was the best 2.5 years of my life.
And you've talked about this a little bit, but what's something you like to spend your time doing away from work? Maybe something you haven't mentioned yet.
Away from work right now, number one is, this is going to be cliche, but I love spending time with my wife and my dog. Like it's one thing.
Actually, I'm glad you brought up your dog because I got a bone to pick with you on this podcast.
I can't wait
Some
for it.
Some people may not know Britt and I live in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he walks his dog in our neighborhood. Whenever he walks his dog past my house, he's, Charlie, stop. This is where you need to go. Go here, Charlie.
I'm just trying to give you some fertilizer. That's all I'm trying to do. You always want your grass to be green. I'm trying to help with that.
It just cracks me up every time.
But no, like with
he coaches his dog to use my yard.
And for the record, we haven't been by your house in quite a while.
Starting to take that personally.
All right, we'll change that today then. You shouldn't have said it. But yeah, aside from Charlie, again. Well, Jesse, it's one thing to be married, but one of the things we say all the time, like, it's truly married to my best friend, and it's one of the funnest things in the world.
I thought I was your best friend.
Again, sorry, dude. It will hurt. Like, again, and whatever we're doing, like, we go on road trips and literally don't turn on the radio. You know what I mean? Like, just to talk and hang out because we work all the time. But a couple hobbies. Picked up pickleball this summer. That was fun. Not very good. The forehand is. Oh, it's frustrating. And then I've been running a good bit and been reading, trying to read more. And I don't know, just trying to step back this time of year and just enjoy some of the simpler things in life. Because from August to May, as we all know, with work here and then with freelance work outside, you know, you kind of start to lose sight of like your health and hitting that reset button, as we mentioned before.
All right, so we're going to leave that there. We're going to talk about what you do here and your job, your role here a bit later, but we're going to take a break from asking you personal questions and get into midterms.
I've heard some rumors about this section here.
Do tell.
Yeah, I've heard it's rather competitive. I've heard there is a score system. I've heard some people are very upset with the scores that they've gotten. I've heard some have been unpleased with the questions that they've been at. I've heard a lot. I haven't heard a lot of positives about this section.
It's hurtful.
Other than the host, of course. You know, the host. The host is incredible. That's what I've heard.
How much did that hurt you to say right now?
In this particular segment, not a lot.
I got to say, this is not coming from me, but Charlie, one of our graduate assistants, said last week, quote, Billy got a raw deal on his questions.
Whoa.
That wasn't my words.
Whoa.
His words.
No, listen.
Not mine.
We're going to have to turn on the fourth. We're going to have to turn on the fourth
Amy,
mic for the producer.
We can't hear your mics off. Unfortunately, you can't say anything.
See, that's a low blow right there.
Listen,
you got to give her a chance to defend herself. I don't know whose side to take right now.
I am simply a humble host of a podcast. I am just referring back to what one of our viewers, a self-professed fan of the show, said about last week's episode. I can't ignore my duties as a host just because it happened to be about me. That said,
I will say this.
The review committee did not accept any of my appeals.
I have heard some of the questions. You did tell me one of the questions, and there's no way.
That I got?
Yeah, that I would have gotten it right. So, style of question.
What question was it?
It was the one about Augusta National. Yeah. That was creative, I must say, but I'm not the guy you call for trivia night, unless it's sports trivia or Seinfeld trivia. I'd be pretty good at those.
Well, then you have a chance at some of these. But before we do that, I designed these especially for you, as I say every week. And the winner at the end of all of this will be able to claim that they are the Office Trivia Champion. That is breaking the hearts of the viewers here. It's not going to be me officially. And I know, and I'm sorry too. I apologize for my performance. But I do want to show the current standings so everyone knows where we sit. And those standings should be coming on your screen right now. So Alexis Davis is in the lead with 6 points. And we have Hannah Gherkin that has either 6 points or 5 points. We have a question that is up for review. The board is reviewing it. Lots of paperwork, lots of red tape. We don't know.
Still all these weeks later.
Well, this is just 2 weeks later.
Again, all these weeks later.
Listen, the board goes through a whole review process. So we don't know. That is either a tie for first or a tie for second. And then we have Amy Shugart and Pearson Brown tied for the next spot down, depending on how that first one shakes out with 5. So they are either tied for second or third. So to get on the podium, you have to be 5 points. And I can see our producer is confused. Let me explain.
What's the lowest
Alexis
score,
has 6. Hannah has either 5 or 6. So if she goes to 6, and who knows how the review board's going to rule. That's not for me to say. Kind of. Then that would be second. Then you two, Pearson and Amy, would be tied for third place because there's 2 people ahead of you. But if we go to 5 points on the review, there'll be a 3-way tie for second place. It's all very complicated and convoluted. Anyway, Britt, you need 5 points to get on the podium.
Who's the lowest?
I'm getting some evil eye over here from the producer.
Listen, I've said many a times, our producer, who I will leave unnamed if you don't know her name, he's already said it. I'm scared of her, so I don't want to get on her bad side. We're friends. We're really good friends. Best friends, some would say. So
I thought your wife was your best friend. Got him.
You could have multiple best friends. I remember there's no rules. Remember,
that's the only pop quiz. There are very much rules for midterms.
Is there?
I make them up as we go. I'm kidding. They're very official. You ready for midterms?
Let's fire away.
Okay.
It's just like I didn't study for my actual midterms in college, so I'll fit right in.
And again, many
let's
people
go.
have said this. I do not suggest that, students, as a strategy. Number 1, you're an Auburn football fan. What was the first bowl game Auburn ever played in? I will accept year or name of the bowl.
Ooh, I could not tell you that. Let me ask you this. Can I get a hint? Does that bowl exist today?
It does not exist today. At least under the name that it was. And the location definitely is not somewhere we have bowl games right now.
Savannah, Georgia.
The Bacardi Bowl in 1937 in Cuba.
In Cuba?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I thought that was
okay.
interesting, too.
All right.
All right, number 2, and I assume our producer is keeping track of the score. Yeah, okay. Number 2, this is a multiple choice question.
All right.
But if you would like to answer it without hearing the choices, you're welcome to. You're a Dolphins fan. How many touchdown passes did Dan Marino have in his career?
Oh.
The multiple choice, 400, 420, 433, 456.
I'm going to go C, 433.
420.
All right.
All right.
I don't know random stats. No, you always go C. You go C when in doubt. Take C. You guys don't listen to John Boy and Billy?
I listen to Billy.
Well, John Boy and Billy
Exclusively.
happens to be a nationally syndicated radio show. They have a full segment. Always take C. A whole. Wow, it's sad. It's sad that you're in the studio doing a podcast. You don't know John Boy and Billy.
Wow.
It's a nationally syndicated radio show for like 30 years.
This is 2 questions. He starts lashing out. Number 3, you are an Everybody Loves Raymond fan.
Yeah.
The show. What was Ray delivering to Deborah when he first met her?
Futon.
A futon. He's on the board. Didn't even have to think about it. All right.
Yeah, because it was an actual, not a random fact.
Well, isn't all trivia random if you think about it? I think that's something good to contemplate philosophically. Number 4, your family, I don't know what I'm saying. Your family has Irish background.
I think.
In your descent. What is the national animal of Ireland? I will give you a hint. It is not a unicorn. That is Scotland.
National animal of Ireland? Mm-hmm. Oh. I don't know, man. A flamingo. Who knows?
What a guess.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah.
It's the Irish hare, a rabbit.
I have no idea.
I would have
what an Irish
accepted
hare
rabbit
is.
or bunny or bunny rabbit.
Okay.
I would have accepted any of those.
Gotcha.
Number 5, you were a Seinfeld fan.
Yeah.
All right. Which character did Larry David base on himself?
George Costanza.
George Costanza is correct. He gets his TV questions right. That's
Again, they're things people might actually know versus.
I thought, as big of an Auburn football fan as you were, I thought you might know the bowl question.
Yeah, the bowl question's fair, but random stats, how many home runs did certain people or touchdowns, no one knows the answer to that question.
But that's why I give you multiple choice on that one, because it gave you a chance.
Yeah.
So
you did give me a chance.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Number 6. Who of these 4 is not credited with inventing the radio? There are 3 people that all have credit for inventing different parts of the radio.
All right.
So one of these 4 people did not invent the radio. I will give you this hint that may or may not be helpful, because I know you went to Auburn, so you had a class where we learned about some of these names.
Yeah.
The person that did not invent the radio is the person who invented part of the television.
Okay.
All right. Guglielmo Marconi, which, what a name, by the way.
All right.
Philo Farnsworth, Reginald Fessenden, and William Dubilier. I've heard it both ways.
I'm going to go with Farnsworth.
Correct. Philo Farnsworth.
Yep.
So we're at 3. Philo Farnsworth, by the way, 17 years old when he invented the key part that made TV possible.
Hey, shout out to Dr. Brinson, History of Broadcasting. Saved me on that question.
That was B. So that was also B, not C, by the way. The multiple choice answers. What saved you on that question?
Dr. Brinson,
Dr. Brinson.
History of Broadcasting.
History of Broadcasting. Philo Farnsworth. Great name. All of these names are good names, by the way. They're all great names. But Guglielmo Marconi, that is a Hall of Fame level name.
There we go.
Okay. Number 7, you're sitting at 3 points. So you have beaten me by half a point.
Good.
If that makes you happy.
Good.
I don't know if it does or not.
Not last.
You were not last. Number 7, you said To Kill a Mockingbird was about a town near yours. What year was it published?
Ooh, I actually don't know the answer to that.
Thought maybe you would learn this in your school because of where it was written.
Yeah, something I should probably know. I will guess the 60s and say 67. I have no idea.
You were close, 1960.
1960.
You were close.
Got you.
Number 8, you're a Braves fan.
Yep.
Who is the only Braves player to play for them in all 3 cities as a Brave?
Hank Aaron.
It's not Hank Aaron. Our producer would like to guess because she was going to ask me this trivia question. It's Eddie Matthews.
Eddie, I wouldn't know that.
That was going to be a question I got asked, and then they didn't ask me, and I would have known it, and I'm very upset about it. So actually, I just gave myself a point.
It's not how that works,
Still,
for
not,
sure.
still not on the podium.
Yeah,
the review board has actually approved that one. They went very fast on that. All right, so we're at 3 points. You got to get both of the last 2 questions right to get on the podium.
All right.
Number 9. What is older, the patent for FM radio or the launch of the first liquid-fueled rocket?
FM radio.
Nope. Liquid-fueled rocket.
Really?
1926, FM radio patent, 1933.
Yeah, I never would have guessed the rocket yeah.
All right, number 10. Just to keep running up the score against me.
Yeah.
For our own little
Yeah.
inner
I've already won, so.
Number 10. What year did the Andy Griffith Show premiere?
1963.
1960.
1960.
I made both 1960 because I thought it would be funny if you got them both right, or
Gotcha.
didn't guess 1960 because you had already guessed it.
Yeah.
So okay, so you got 3.
Yeah.
Which is again half a point more than me. So
Again,
you do have bragging rights in the media office.
This is something trivia I don't take a whole lot of stock in. I'm not a trivia person. So
then by that standard, you know what? We're going to call it a good performance, and we're going to move on to Let's Get Professional.
Let's do it.
Talk about what you do here. You're a coordinator for student media. I am also a coordinator for student media. We have been a team for the last 6 years. But you are primarily the advisor for Weagle and the Glom, and then co-advise the Plainsman with me. Talk about what you do with those groups.
Yeah, so WGL, I mean, much like what you do for Eagle Eye TV, I mean, we oversee, and the Glom, we oversee all aspects of those organizations. I mean, first and foremost, we are there to oversee the organization structure, which is making sure the staff is in place and they have a org chart in place to serve their members. We're meeting with students weekly. My favorite part of the job is teaching. Is teaching the skills that it takes to operate within those groups, and then also we are handling their budget with the Student Government Association and being their liaison on campus to all of our administrators. That in a nutshell every day is what we do. Again, we can get very specific. I will say, I think one of the most interesting parts of the job is just dealing with the people, is dealing with the different personalities and meeting the different students that you come across every single day is I think the best. And that's what's great about going to college, right, is meeting people that you normally wouldn't cross paths with, especially for me, who's from a small town.
All right, so you've worked to rebuild these organizations over the last 6 years. I talked in the episode last week. I kind of talked about how when we both got hired, the team of advisors was hired at the same time, and all of the groups needed to essentially be rebuilt from the studs. talk about what that process was like from your perspective. I'm not going to kind of replay the stuff
sure.
I said because people can just click on the previous video if they want to hear that. But from your perspective, what was that process like? Maybe what was difficult about it? What did you think was easier than you thought about it?
Yeah, it was definitely challenging. Thinking back to those times, because it was a time where they wanted us to be a broadcast advisor per se, or wanted me to be a broadcast advisor, you to be a technical advisor, Alec to be a editorial advisor, and then Elizabeth to be a sales advisor. I get the thought process behind it, but as we found out very early in just trying to manage the groups, we found out very early the students didn't know who to go to on some things. And two, we were also very conscious of not stepping on the other's toes because, it was clear. You had more background in TV. I had more background in radio. And, we weren't necessarily working with our strengths, and I didn't think we were utilizing our resources within the staff appropriately. I thought Alec and Elizabeth Snyder at the time were in a good structure because I still to this day I thought we need some sort of a sales advisor in student media, and of course Alec with his background in working with L.com and the Birmingham News, he was in the right place with editorial. But being a broadcast advisor, there were only two groups who were doing broadcasts, but we're helping all the groups and supposed to be an advisor for all groups. Well, that wasn't necessarily the case at the time because, again, it was just too specific for those roles. So that was definitely tough. And then coming in and realizing that all the groups really didn't have much of an infrastructure within each organization. We are student run, but I hesitate to say this, but I think for some of those groups they were given too much freedom. There wasn't enough advisor oversight in recent years, and you could tell it from the budgets. You could tell it from just the resources that the students had. We had an automation system in the radio station, for example, that was not reliable. It was cutting off every 24 hours, and then also students were playing music off an iPod, which is illegal, by the way. So it was a lot of things like that it just took time to change the culture and teaching students that, hey, this is not a place where you just come in and hang out. If we're going to be here, we have to get work done and then reap the rewards while being here of hanging out, becoming friends, and because we want that to be a part of the culture here, but it's not the number one priority, and it took a bit to establish that, and it also took a bit for the students to trust us in the vision that we had for these organizations. But it was a challenging time, but I will say it was a necessary time. I probably wouldn't have, if I could go back, I probably wouldn't have done everything the exact way we did it then, but we are not here today. These organizations aren't succeeding today without going through those times 6 years ago.
You can look at the impact you've had in Weagle, for instance, this podcast. Doing it on video would not have been possible.
Yeah.
And we would have been sitting in a straight line instead of being able to actually look at each other, which would have made it very hard because people would talk like this away from the microphone to look at people, and you wouldn't hear them very well. So just the functional space usage and things like that you helped them with was great. And something I appreciate about working with you is there has never been an ego issue. If a student went to you instead of me or me instead of you, that was never an issue. And I appreciate that you never keep score if someone goes to someone else instead of you and vice versa.
Well, and that's the thing. In when you're serving students, if you're truly in it for your ego, and not, again, I'm not saying anyone is, but if that's what you're in it for, this place can quickly turn into a toxic environment. And that's any work environment. That's not just here, but that's any. You can't go through life keeping tabs on what one coworker is getting, what one coworker is doing, who's getting invited to this meeting, who's not getting invited to this meeting. Like, people are allowed to be friends and have different relationships with people. So some students are naturally going to be closer to you. Some students are naturally going to be closer to me, and that's okay. And that's one thing that I've tried to be conscious of is just being a role model for the students. Because if we start taking part in and things like that. I mean, the student, it will quickly trickle down through the organizations. You know, we're supposed to be the example, and hopefully we have been.
What's a common misconception that most people have about the media that you think is untrue?
I think a common misconception is that, I think especially in local media, I can't speak for the national media. I've never worked in the national media, but in the local media, that there's a negative agenda. There's always something that media is trying to push across. And to be honest, at least in my experience in working in media and meeting members of the media, that's just not true. And honestly, I've learned that more in sports and a little bit in news that, like a lot of the beat writers don't actually hate your teams. They are actually just trying to get the information
fair
and report on what your teams are doing. And, and it's hard. It's really hard. And for me, it's a little bit easier because I'm fortunate enough to be able to work for Auburn, and a lot of my radio broadcasts are in Auburn's light.
Yep.
Because they are for the university. But yeah, it's not fair, and honestly, especially in the news media right now, and just even in the state, and because so much of the state of Alabama is everybody thinks the same way, and if anybody challenges anything, right or wrong, it's automatically just viewed as the worst thing in the world, and it's hard to grow, in as a society. I think, especially right now when you look at the media, and you can't trust what's being out there, and it's not being trusted because of all the different reasons that are out there right now.
I think that's, for me, the misconception is, and I'll just say what the reality is, not the misconception, but local media and national media are very different.
Yeah,
national media, there's more opinion-based stuff and sensationalism, where local media is still pretty much just going to tell you facts.
And most are out there truly trying to serve their community.
And that is what our groups are doing, is serving the Auburn campus community as well as they can. So hopefully we're not seeing bias or opinion or anything like that. What's been the biggest surprise or unexpected part of the job for you?
Unexpected part of the job, I'll give a couple. Number one is how much I've grown into this and how much I enjoy it and love it. Full transparency, I thought I would be out of here in 2 years. I knew it was a point that I needed to be. I didn't have any other job offers. I was like, I needed to take this, needed to invest in this and grow and get Weagle off the ground. But I thought I would move on a lot quicker than I have. And that has nothing to do with Weagle or student media or Auburn or anything like that. It was just me being young and naive. It is more what that is, and that's the longer I'm here, the more and more I realize that. Secondly, is how big of an impact you can have on somebody. And I mean just in a day-to-day, how are you doing, and just being kind to people, how far that goes. You see it a little bit in high school, but it's different when it's your peers in high school versus, you're someone people is looking up to, for students, for example, and being in a leadership role. And not to give too much detail with this situation, but my second year here, I was working with a student, and they were going through some things, and had come to me once before and had come in one evening and staying late for a meeting, and they said they were having suicidal thoughts, and it's something that never in a million years thought I would deal with, something I never thought, it's just not something you think about, especially at the time. I was 25 years old, as green as day as an advisor, was learning the job on the day. And, the stop and think that they trusted me enough and I was the person that they came to, made me sit there and think, like, we're not just here showing these kids how to run a board or how to fix a graphic and how to make a yearbook and whatnot. Like we are here in a lot of ways for a lot of kids, like we're their support system to some degree, in a very small way. We're one of their support systems, and that was one of the most eye-opening moments for me as an advisor, because again, like you just never know what someone else is going through. You never know what someone else is dealing with, and I have to remind myself daily, because I get frustrated with people. I get frustrated with myself, and vice versa. But it's that moment is just one of those things that when you see a kid having a tough day, or maybe not acting the way you would like them to act as a student leader or something, you truly don't know what's going on, and it's just something to always keep in mind whenever you're dealing with students.
Well, and I will, the situation you talked about, we won't go into detail with it or anything, but I will never be able to effectively communicate how impressive the way you handled that situation was. And you are someone who never wants the credit and never wants the attention, but no one will ever be able to give you enough credit and enough compliments on how impressive what you did for that student and the way you handled that was.
And I appreciate that. And it is crazy that person, after they had graduated, was struggling through some things again, and called me, and I went to see them. This was years later. Mm-hmm. This is years later, and spent some time with them, and they kind of had fallen off the map for a couple weeks, where I just hadn't heard any updates and anything, and had finally heard back and said they had gone to get professional help, which is something I was so excited to hear, because it's something, I mean, you can encourage someone to do something 1,000 times, and you can encourage someone, and also too personally, I mean, like talking yourself into going to get help yourself for things you need, which, by the way, is, if you're thinking about it, you're listening to this podcast and you're struggling with something, and take it from my advice, because I've had to learn to do this for myself with my wife's encouragement. Like, it's okay to go and talk to somebody with whatever you're dealing with, because like you'd be amazed with how much of a difference it can make, and two, like how many lives it saved. Mm-hmm. And personally in my family, some family members have some medical diagnoses that they can't help. It's just part of who they are. It's part of who they're born with, and I mean, family, they have to rely on professional help, and that's not a bad thing. Yeah. That's not a bad thing. And so to see that person go and get help was a huge relief. And I don't know exactly where that person is today, but just super, super happy with what they've been able to overcome,
and that they are here today.
Today.
On a much lighter note, you already talked about your favorite part of the job, so I'm not going to re-ask you that. Who's your favorite coworker?
Favorite coworker? Carl Ross. No question.
Thought this was finally going to be the one.
No, Carl Ross. For those that don't know Carl is our building specialist here in the Student Center. Carl is from Opelika, Alabama, born and raised. Carl is a Opelika Bulldog through and through. And Carl is, and I hate to say this, but Carl is the biggest Alabama fan that I have ever met in my life. He lets me hear it every day. He is not an Auburn fan by any means, but Carl comes in every day. We have our banter, and I'll say this: Carl has not been here for the last 3 weeks, and holy cow, like
it's noticeable.
As much as he comes into my office telling me to be nice and that I'm a redneck some days, I miss the guy. Oh, it's too quiet around here.
Yep.
I mean, nobody vacuums like Carl. Nobody
multiple times a day.
Nobody cleans Billy's window outside of his office like Carl. Like, we miss the guy. Carl,
he will knock on the window until I turn around and engage him through the window.
And I can't wait for that either.
I can't either. Looking to the year ahead.
Yep.
Student media will be successful in the next year if what?
Student media will be successful in the next year. Honestly, if if they stick to their work ethic, and every student leader has a plan, and they stick to that plan and trust their instincts, that this year will be successful. Because I've learned a long time ago that success has nothing to do, based off what you and I are doing every day. Like, yes, we have to do the core parts of our job of submitting our budgets to make sure they have money and things like that. But the work, all the great things our students have accomplished, yes, they needed a structure to succeed. They have that structure. It's up to them to go and do the work. All those awards out there that we just were able to put up, trophies in our suite with national awards and state awards that our students have won, it's because of the work they did. It wasn't because of the work we did. And they came in, put in the time, put in the effort, and they did the basic things that's asked of them in these groups. And if they do those things, the rest is going to take care of itself.
All right, we're going to leave it there and get to our final segment, Quote Me on That. And this is where we're each going to give a quote that we like, that can be funny, meaningful, thought-provoking, all the above. No one's hit that mark yet still, but our producer is thinking she did, but she quoted me, and I can tell you that I am not thought-provoking, meaningful, or funny. So she did not. She went over 3. But mine, I'll start so I can give you time to think, make sure you get what you want to do. Mine is, you have to believe in your process. You have to believe in the things that you are doing to help the team win. I think you have to take the good with the bad. That is said by the very wise Tom Brady. And I think it's good to know, because we're going to have days where the equipment fails. We're going to have days where students end up not being able to come in here and do their regular office hours for sometimes because they have a test, or maybe they're sick. And there are going to be times where that makes doing the job harder for the other students. But then there's so many days when everything goes right and it's great. So I think you have to take the good with the bad and not let the highs be too high and the lows be too low, and just keep even and keep doing the work, and everything works out. What Tom Brady quote did you use?
Not a Tom Brady quote. This is one, I've seen some different variations of this, and it's not a quote per se, but it's something that I've kind of used for myself in trying to challenge myself to get into broadcasting and to honestly just grow out of where I was from. One of my goals was to always, I love my hometown, but to move on and experience something different. And, for me in broadcasting, small town kid from Exo, Alabama, I'm not supposed to be, statistics say I'm not supposed to be in the seat that I'm in right now. I'm not supposed to have that opportunity. And mine is, you've got one shot to do to pursue what you want to pursue. You've got one shot, and it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to do it. And a lot of things will go into that. It will be circumstances. It may be fear. It may be a lot of different things, but you've got one shot to do it. When you look down the road in 30, 40 years, what do you want that answer to be? That, hey, I gave it my all, succeeded, or didn't succeed, but you have absolutely no regrets in the decision that you made, or, are you going to look back and be defeated? And I've just always said that I love this. Broadcasting is what I love to do, but it's not who I am, and it's just something I've always been passionate about pursuing, and I didn't want me not trying to stop me from pursuing that, because self-doubt is something I've struggled with a lot. But I will leave you with one long quote. It's a long one, so it may not make the final podcast, and if it doesn't, that's fine, but it's about Auburn, and I love Auburn through and through. My family went to Auburn, all the things, and if you went to Auburn and love Auburn, you'll love this, and I'm sure you've heard it. It's by David Housel. He was asked the question, what is Auburn? His answer: far be it from me to answer that question. There are many definitions of Auburn, as there are Auburn men and women. It would be safe to say, however, that Auburn is more than a football game. It is much more than winning and losing. It is a spirit. It is an attitude. It is a way of looking at life and at one another. It is almost a way of living. Unless you have experienced it, you will never know what it is. You will never understand it. Once you have experienced it, you will never be the same. A part of you will forevermore be an Auburn man or an Auburn woman.
I think that's a good place to leave it. Britt, thanks for joining me today. Usually I say getting to know more about you, but we've worked together for 6 years, so I know you pretty well, but I still enjoyed getting to know you all over again. Thank you for both being here today and for the last 6 years being a good teammate. Until next time, I'm Billy Ferris. This has been Access Involvement, where discovering your path is as easy as finding toilet paper on Toomer's Corner after a big win.